Between 1952 and 1969, the United States Air Force ran an official investigation into unidentified flying objects. It was called Project Blue Book. Over 17 years, it received 12,618 reports. It explained away 11,917 of them. And it declared the remaining 701, officially on the record, unexplained. 701 cases that the United States Air Force, with all its resources, all its scientists, and all its radar data, could not explain. And then it shut the entire program down and told the public there was nothing to worry about. Tonight, we look at what Blue Book actually found, why it was really closed, and what its own lead scientist said about it after the fact. And I want to know, do you think shutting it down was about science or about control? Comment below. Project Blue Book was not the Air Force's first attempt. It was preceded by Project Sign in 1947 and Project Grudge in 1949. Project Sign produced an internal document known as the Estimate of the Situation, a top-secret report that concluded the most likely explanation for UFO sightings was extraterrestrial vehicles. Air Force Chief of Staff Hoyt Vandenberg rejected the report and ordered it destroyed. Most copies were burned, the program was renamed Grudge, and the tone shifted from investigation to debunking. By 1952, the program had been renamed again, this time to Blue Book, and placed under the direction of Captain Edward Ruppelt. Ruppelt was, by most accounts, genuinely interested in finding answers. He improved data collection procedures, standardized reporting forms, and treated witnesses with respect. Under his leadership, Blue Book produced some of its most interesting work. But Ruppelt left in 1953 and the program's character changed. From that point forward, Blue Book operated less as a scientific investigation and more as a public relations exercise. Cases were assigned explanations with minimal analysis. Weather balloons, temperature inversions, Venus swamp gas. The labels were applied liberally and often without supporting evidence. The program's scientific consultant was J. Allen Hynek, an astrophysicist from Northwestern University. Hynek was initially a skeptic. He was hired specifically to provide scientific credibility to the program's conclusions. For years he did exactly that, signing off on explanations and helping dismiss cases as misidentifications. But Hynek's position changed. Over time, he became increasingly uncomfortable with the quality of the analysis. He later stated publicly that cases involving credible witnesses, pilots, military officers, radar operators, were being explained away with answers that did not withstand scrutiny. He described the methodology as intellectually dishonest. Hynek coined the term close encounters and developed a classification system that remains in use today. Close encounters of the first kind, visual sightings at close range, close encounters of the second kind, physical effects on the environment, close encounters of the third kind, observation of occupants. He did this not to sensationalize the phenomenon, but to bring scientific rigor to a field that Blue Book was actively undermining. Among the 701 unexplained cases are incidents involving multiple independent witnesses, radar confirmation, and physical trace evidence. These are not ambiguous reports from isolated observers. They include cases where trained military personnel tracked objects on radar, while ground observers simultaneously reported visual contact, what the Air Force calls radar visual cases. These are among the hardest to dismiss, and Blue Book left dozens of them in the unexplained category. The 1952 Washington, D.C. flap is one of the most dramatic. Over 2 consecutive weekends in July, unidentified objects were tracked on radar at Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base. Fighter jets were scrambled. The objects appeared on multiple independent radar systems simultaneously, ruling out equipment malfunction. Visual confirmation came from pilots, air traffic controllers, and civilian witnesses on the ground. The Air Force held its largest press conference since the Second World War. The official explanation was temperature inversions, layers of warm air that can bend radar signals and create false returns. But multiple radar operators stated that the returns were solid and consistent with physical objects, not atmospheric anomalies. Hynek himself later said the temperature inversion explanation was inadequate. The Condon Report was commissioned in 1966 to provide an independent scientific assessment of the UFO question. Edward Condon, a physicist at the University of Colorado, led the study. Before the investigation was complete, a leaked memo revealed that Condon's intention was to reach a predetermined negative conclusion. Robert Lowe, the project coordinator, wrote that the trick would be to describe the project in a way that it could appear to be an objective study while knowing in advance that there was no scientific basis for the phenomenon. When the Condon Report was published in 1968, it concluded that further study of UFOs was unlikely to advance science. This conclusion was used as justification to close Blue Book in 1969, but several members of Condon's own team publicly dissented. David Saunders, a psychologist on the project, was fired after revealing the Lowe memo. Mary Lou Armstrong, an administrative assistant, resigned in protest. They stated that the conclusion did not reflect the evidence the team had actually gathered. Hynek went public after Blue Book's closure. He wrote a book, The UFO Experience, in which he systematically dismantled the program's methodology. He described how cases were often closed with the first plausible-sounding explanation, regardless of whether it actually fit the evidence. He cited cases where sightings were attributed to stars or planets that were below the horizon at the time of the report. He described a culture within the program that prioritized closure over truth. Blue Book's files are now declassified and available through the National Archives. Anyone can read them, and anyone who does will find the same thing Hynek found: 701 cases that the Air Force could not explain, surrounded by thousands more where the explanations don't hold up under examination. The program was not closed because the mystery was solved. It was closed because the mystery was inconvenient. The Condon Report provided political cover. Blue Book provided the illusion of investigation. And the 701 unexplained cases were filed away, unresolved, where they remain today. Project Blue Book is not ancient history. It is the foundation of modern UAP policy. The decision made in 1969 that there was nothing worth studying held for nearly 50 years. It shaped public perception, media coverage, and scientific funding. It told a generation of researchers that this subject was not worth their careers, and it was built on methodology that the program's own lead scientist called dishonest. 12,618 cases, 701 unexplained. A lead scientist who recanted. A report designed to reach a predetermined conclusion and a closure that had nothing to do with answers. Those are the facts. You decide what they mean. Comment below. I read everyone. Subscribe now and follow the evidence.